he's ready, I will, whoops, I didn't do that. Oh, he must have done that. Okay, OTF Connects. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to OTF Connects. Tonight we're here with Daniel Lustrinelli from, I think it's Hamilton, who's going to talk to us tonight about using Google Apps for Education to engage students in business studies. And we've been having a great little time here, Daniel, chatting and getting to know each other. So welcome to our happy crowd. Okay, he's still getting his mic set up. Let us know, Daniel, as soon as you're ready. Yes, Camille.
Hello. I thought I'd just test out my mic to see if everyone can hear me now.
Sounds wonderful.
All right. And by the way, I'm in Hamilton also.
Okay.
All right, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Welcome.
Okay, thank you. All right, how's everybody doing?
We're good. We're a happy crowd. We've done the preamble. I've done the intro. Recording has started. So I'm going to turn it over to you if that's okay.
Yes, perfect. I guess I have a couple questions to ask. I did send an email earlier today. I'm not sure that everybody has access to the Google Classroom. I have one person signed up, but I'm not sure that everybody's tried to sign up yet.
So we have a couple of ways of finding out.
Okay.
We can have people give you a green check mark if they have signed in, and a red X if they have not. But if you've only seen that there's only one person, then maybe we need to walk people through that.
Sure. Sure.
I tried to sign up, but I couldn't. It said I didn't have access.
I was the same. I went in and it says it said I'm in my Jody Serina Gmail account, but I couldn't do anything besides that.
Okay. Even if we can't sign up, I can still just show you how it works. I'm not sure if it's because you do not have a Google Apps for Education account, which I'm assuming that not everybody does. So I can still go through it with everyone and still go through the shared folder we have and some of the activities that I posted in there, so that it means that everybody would still have access to everything that we're doing. Do we have 20 people online or so?
If you look right above your name, where it says main room, you'll see that the number there is 15 and that includes you and me.
Yes. Okay. So are we waiting on people, or are we just going to just go right through like you said?
No, we're going to go right ahead.
Okay. All right. I will paste the link into the chat on your screen here. Those people who have signed up for the Google Classroom will see I've posted a survey or a questionnaire for everyone to answer. So the idea behind this webinar is, yes, energizing your students in business classes, but it's also just about the way you use technology in Google Apps for Education and the usefulness, or even in some cases the not so great applications that sometimes show up in classes, and whether they can be adapted to your scenario specifically. So I will paste that link in here, and again, it's to show that it's great to get that instant feedback from students, and you can really start a conversation in your class. So I will do that now for everyone. And it's only a 3-question questionnaire. So I will ask people to click yes or no if they've have the link and can access it as well.
I get a message, it's Jody. I get a message that says you need permission. This form can only be viewed by users in the owner's organization.
It might be because I have it in the classroom, so I will change the access on that. How are you?
Oh, yeah, I'm. Okay, I have to get back in.
Okay, so you should be good now. If you hit refresh, it should work.
Okay.
And these are some of the kinks sometimes you would have as well if you were, doing this with your students for the first time, just showing them, sometimes permissions are automatically set. So I'm in the Halton District School Board, and we have, or use quite extensively, at least in our school, Google Apps for Education. So our students do have access to everything. So sometimes, and I apologize for that, I have the auto settings on and I haven't changed the permission. So it should be good now. So if you want to click that link again, you should be good.
Oh, there we go.
And I see in the chat here it says that I'm in Hamilton. I am in Hamilton, but I'm actually at work. I'm still in the building or school right now, so I'm in Burlington at this point. But I do live in Hamilton.
I can hear someone typing. It's Jody. It's probably you. There we go.
Sorry, was it super loud?
Well, we should just turn the mic off when we're not talking.
Okay.
All right, we're getting there. 7 responses. And I'll show you the response result and just how that works, and a couple cool little add-ons in Google that you can use. And I use them sometimes as quizzes, and again, those add-ons that can be used. So I'll just wait another minute. Okay, has everybody finished? Okay. Susan, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you fine. I think
Okay.
Camille, you have a question?
Yes, I do. Right now, I'm in my Google Drive, and I'm seeing the 16 files that you set out for us.
Yes.
I've clicked on the survey, but I can't type on it.
Oh.
Is there a reason for that? Do I have to be in a different part of Google other than my own drive?
So if you've clicked on the survey, you should probably see what you wouldn't see if you clicked the link that I gave you in the chat box in the bottom left corner. So what you're probably seeing is the ability for you to edit questions.
Right,
So,
I'm just seeing the file alone, like.
Yeah, so if you're on that, there is, I will tell you, there is an option. So if you click on.
There's open image and new tab, would that be it?
So, give me 1 second here. They've actually recently changed the way forms will look. I shouldn't say, I think it's pretty recent.
I think you click on the eyeball, don't you?
You can click the preview button. Oh yeah, and it does bring you there. There you go.
Yeah.
So that's the eyeball. That's the eyeball. Okay.
Okay.
There's actually an option in Google Forms now where it lets you go back to the old version stuff. So there.
Did you get it, Camille?
No. Where I am is I'm in my Google Drive. I clicked on the survey.
Yes.
But I'm not seeing anything else.
Okay. Do you have? Can you see in the Collaborate screen?
Oh, sorry, I'm not in the Blackboard Collaborate. I was in Google by itself.
So if you go back to the Collaborate screen in the bottom left corner, I've put a link in there as well where it says chat-supervised. So if you scroll up a little bit, you can see the link that I have in there. If you just click that link, it'll bring you right there.
You mean the Google Docs, right?
Yeah, it says docs.google.com and then HTSP. And
it's the only link that's in there under Daniel's name.
That's
so click that. It'll take you right to the survey.
Okay, just to move a little bit, I don't want to move too far ahead. We'll wait for Camille, but I just have just want to show you guys. Just again, many of you may have used this before, and it's great even in these sessions if you want to share some of your experiences, what has worked, and sometimes when we're using new technology, not everything works, and not everything goes smoothly in a classroom or with an assignment or an activity, whatever it may be in a class. So. Stories are great, sharing is great, and that's part of the webinar that we're going through tonight. So I'm going to take you on a web tour. Again, if you want to put your hand up or send a message that you can't see what's on my screen, but I will do that now, and then you'll see me navigating through the Google form, and we'll talk about some of our answers, and then we'll move on to, as it's seen in the presentation here, we'll move on to some of the add-ons and extensions in Chrome and Google or Google Apps for Education, and talk about simulations, performance tasks, and we'll share some resources as well. So I will do that now. So in your Collaborate screen, you should see soon my Chrome, my Google Chrome.
I've got it.
Can everyone see that? So we're at 3, I think. Hoping everyone can see that. Does anybody not see what's on my screen? No, I think we're good. I'll take the silence as a yes. So I'm just going to fill out the quick survey, and it should bring me to my results. Okay, so I do apologize. It's not giving me my results here. So, Susan, if I click on application sharing, will it allow me to, I apologize to everybody for this conversation, will it allow me just to move to my my browser?
Yes, I think you should. I think that's probably what I was just thinking that. You should use application sharing. So if you close out of WebTour, or just click on application sharing, and it will let you. So everyone else, you're basically just going to see Daniel's desktop, and as he moves around on his desktop, we're going to follow him. The only thing with application sharing is that, Daniel, try not, you've maybe done this before, but you and I haven't chatted yet, so yeah, you just have to watch that you don't scroll too quickly. And for those of us that are watching, you may see the screen take time if he scrolls up and down, so he'll be careful. He knows what he's doing.
I think. So we have our names of our responders here, and it doesn't, don't worry, it doesn't tell you what you responded as, so if you're worried about privacy of information, it's not telling who answered what. I'd like to say hi to some people here I do know, so I know some of you just by name. So hello everyone that I know and have met at past workshops and around the province and even in our board as well. So I'm very interested to see, and part of our schedule here is just even having a little sort of discussion about this for a few minutes, that some schools and school boards do not allow, so we have some answer, or at least one answer here, where technology or devices are not permitted. So that's not the majority, that is the minority here, but just in, I will ask everyone, do you feel like, I guess that's a problem, or are you hoping or wishing that even if your board would scale back on some of the use of devices in your schools and your board or classrooms? And feel free to open your mic and add to the discussion.
Our kids in Kirkland Lake all got iPads this year, so starting in September. Just our grade 9s and 10s got them this year, so I was kind of glad I didn't have any 9s or 10s first semester because when they were new, like that's all, you know, like you had a hard time getting kids to do anything else. But now I've got math second semester and the novelty's kind of worn off, so the kids are pretty good. Like I like having them because there's lots that we can do with them, but they're pretty good to, okay, you don't need it right now, put it away. And they've gotten better at that as the school year's gone on. But I think overall they're an asset.
I can tell you just about some of my experience here. So I'm in a relatively new building, and we opened 3 years ago. And one of the things, and you see it in that question there, that we as a school tried to promote was bringing your own device. So it was encouraged to be brought. One thing that I have noticed over the last couple of years, and I picked this up from somewhere, I didn't make up this concept or terminology, but I find there's a very big difference between what I sometimes call, and again, I picked this up somewhere off the top of my head, I forget where I picked it up from, but a creation device versus a consumption device. So I don't know if that's the same for everybody else, but I do find if a student just has a phone, it's great for consumption sometimes, but sometimes not so great for creation. And I've actually found that in some classes, and that's why I wrote, if you saw my response as I was putting it into the survey, that technology is great in a lot of cases, almost most cases in most classrooms, but I do find it sometimes a hindrance as well. So it is okay, I think, sometimes to turn down the technology, for lack of a better phrase, and have a discussion, or use sometimes in good old, as I always say, good old piece of paper and pencil, and if you have a projector, if you have something up on the screen that students are collaborating or working on. I don't know if anybody feels the same way or if they have any stories to share about that, but again, feel free to open the microphone and add to the conversation.
I agree with you. In our school, we have one computer lab with desktops, and then we have Chromebook carts and iPad carts. So most classes have access to computer, some type of technology when they need it. But I agree that sometimes there's a bit of technology overload, and getting them to put their devices away and write on even a blackboard. It doesn't even have to be smartboard. Sometimes catches their attention more so than something on a device.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I mean, again, where I am, we use technology quite a bit, but we try to use it in a purposeful way. I think sometimes, like you said, we can get a little bit carried away with it, and I think as educators and throughout our province, I think we're still learning with this. So I think there is information out there, there's data out there to support what we're doing, but we're still learning as well. So obviously technology's been around for a while, but the way in which we use it is changing a little bit, and I think we're still learning. So I think it's okay to learn, and I think that we don't have all the right answers, and that's what we do in classrooms and in our business classes. So the idea is that we sort of use it in a purposeful way, and not, like you said, there's technology overload. So good discussion there. All right. Does anybody else have any comment they want to add? Because I'm going to go back to the collaborate screen. Okay. Oops. Susan, sorry to ask you another question. I apologize for this. In my application, application sharing.
Go to Tools, and then choose Application Sharing and turn it off.
Oh, stop sharing. There we go.
I saw all these black boxes, and I thought, yeah, he needs me to. I think it's different than last year. I don't think it used to be like that. There used to be another way of doing it.
Yes. I apologize to everyone if I'm going a little bit slow here as well.
No need to apologize, and that's what I'm here for. That's why it's nice to have two people.
Yeah. And I'm just waiting for my wheel is turning on my BlackBerry, not a BlackBerry. I do not have a BlackBerry anymore. My Blackboard Collaborate screen. So I'm just giving it a second, and the presentation should pop up again soon.
Can you click on the whiteboard icon now? There you go.
Oh, there we go. Okay. All right, so our schedule is there, and I know we're already almost an hour, or excuse me, half an hour in, but that is our schedule for the evening. So getting that Google Classroom set up, and I will still go through that with everyone. Our discussion there about purposeful use of technology, so we are a little bit behind, so I apologize if I'm speeding through some of this. It's just to get everything in and have the ability to share a little bit later on. I think Susan's already done some of the introduction, but these are, I guess, a little bit about me, myself, and where I work. And I've done workshops before for the OBEA and through OTF with the webinar and the Summer Institute, and OTF Connect, excuse me, and as well as with Investor Education. So I'll move on from there. Okay. Again, if you're trying to get onto our Google Classroom, if you have access to Google Apps for Education, that is the code. There is an app for it. That's the comment on the bottom there. So if you are using it, it's a pretty useful app. I know sometimes we don't want to take all of our work home, but it's just the reality of the job sometimes. But if you need to post something on a classroom or send a message out on your Google Classroom, there is an app, and it's pretty good, and it's pretty useful when you're not in front of a computer and or tablet. Actually, I'm going to take one step back here. I am going to talk about, sorry, just to move on from the presentation there, but I'm going to talk about a couple of add-ons and an extension. So I'm going to go back to application sharing, and I'm going to show you how using some responses can be, or using the Google form, excuse me, and responses can be a way of an evaluation. So there is a great add-on called Flubaroo, and I will show you how to access that. So I'm going to go to my drive here. So in the top left corner of my screen, you can see Halton Cloud. Unless you're in the Halton District School Board, you wouldn't have that on your screen. Yours might just say Drive, so don't be alarmed that mine says that. That's just our school board and the name for our Google Drive and Cloud. So I'm just pausing for a second here just to make sure that, as Susan has told me, don't click too many things too quickly. So I'm just waiting a second here, and hopefully everybody can see the folder that has been shared with everyone. Susan, am I okay to move on, or am I going too slow?
Yeah, no, I think so.
Okay. Okay. All right. So if you were looking for an add-on or looking to add an add-on, I'm going to use a different file, but I'm going to show you kind of how this works. So I'm going to go to, and again, I apologize if I'm going too quickly. And I hope everyone doesn't mind. I'm going to use the results of our survey now. I know I just said that I wouldn't show it in the form, but does anybody have any objections for or with me using the survey responses we just put into the form? Oh, and somebody's posted a Flubaroo add-on. Okay, so I don't have any objections, and I'm opening up our responses. When you do this, so if you're using Google Forms, there is, and I'm hoping you can see my little hand there where it says Create Spreadsheet. So I'm going to click on that, and it's going to allow me to create a new spreadsheet, which will summarize the responses to our survey here. What I'll do is, so that not everybody can, if you are so concerned, even though you didn't object to me using the responses here, I will just shrink that column so we can't see all of our responses. So I'll hide it. Go. Okay, so I'm going to go to my add-ons. I have already downloaded the add-on. So if you are looking to download it, if you click on add-ons on Google Sheets, there is a Get Add-ons option. Right, so I will click that, or you can click that. Again, my Flubaroo is already there. So I'm going to click on Flubaroo, and I'm going to enable Flubaroo in this sheet. Give it a second to work. And again, I'm just pausing for a second here, so that we can all see. So I will click again, and I'm going to go to my Flubaroo add-on, and I'm going to grade my assignment. So this is great for things like multiple choice questions that you may be doing in your class. And again, I'm going a little bit slow just so I'm not clicking too many buttons, as Susan told me not to do really quickly. So
it's okay. It's not so much the button clicking, it's the scrolling. Yeah,
oh,
this is fine.
Scrolling. Okay. Okay. All right, so when you're doing this, what you want to do is create your own answer key as well. So you can answer your own, in this case it's a form, but it can also be a multiple choice evaluation. And I'm going to click that my answers were the right answers. Now these are some open-ended questions, so generally I would use this in a multiple choice sort of fashion. I'll click on continue, and since my answer is the correct answer, because it's open-ended, you're going to have a lot of wrong answers, so don't be alarmed if your mark wasn't so great. Don't worry. And the grading is complete. It was almost instant. It gives me a great summary here. So I think if you're using Google Apps for Education, many of us, not many of us, I should say, some of us have used Flubaroo, but it's a great little add-on there. And as you can see, it is all marked. Our percentages there. You can actually email a grade as well if you have students' email addresses, and it allows you to send them a summary. And for me, this is a relatively new thing, so I know I've used Flubaroo last year, but in using it again this semester, after a little bit of a pause on it, they've added this option to email a grade, and I've sent it off to my students in my grade 12 accounting class, and they get this great summary of how they did and their answers and in an email. So it's a great little tool to use, and it makes your marking life a little bit easier. Again, if you're using a lot of multiple choice, it works. There you go.
Daniel?
Yes?
Quick question. How do you deal with the security of the fact that it's in Google and now you've shared it, and what stops the kids from seeing that survey and sharing or doing anything with it?
Okay, so in this example here, I've opened up access to anyone who has a link. In a school or a classroom setting, they wouldn't have access to the spreadsheet. So that's how I would protect privacy. So when you email the grade, it only emails their own results, not anybody else's. So they would never see this sheet. This is similar to, let's say, if you're using Markbook or your own mark sheet, same idea. They wouldn't be able to access it. Does that answer the question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Again, don't be embarrassed by your mark there. It's an open-ended question, at least in the last one. So there's no right or wrong here, but it's just a demonstration. So I am going to leave this one, and again, for the sake of time, I'm actually going to skip back to our Google Classroom. So some of you may have used Google Classroom before, some of you may have not. It is a pretty useful tool to organize your class. Now, many people are using websites, and I still think websites are a valuable tool as well. This allows you to contain most of your class in one place. I think Google has done a pretty good job of creating, I guess, an online environment where it makes your class easier to administer. They do work on it. They do add updates. So one recent update they had in the last few months is adding a calendar that students can access to see what's upcoming and what's due or what's past due as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you, because we're going to move on to simulations, but I'm going to show you how to add, and many of you, some of you may, I shouldn't say many, but some of you may already know how to do this, but I'm going to show you how to add an assignment. So I'm going to click on the plus sign on the bottom right corner there. So I'll create an assignment, and our assignment now is just going to be resource sharing, and this will be for later in our webinar. So this will allow anybody who has access to the Google Classroom to share into our folder, and again, it's just showing you how the assignment feature is used in Google Classroom. So I will click on a due date. I'll say our due date is tonight at 2,200 hours. I will then assign resource sharing. And right now, because we only have one student signed up, one of you is not done. So it gives me instant access to my classroom, and I can see instantly who's finished and who's not. So if I click on not done, it tells me who's not done. So Catherine Gatto, she's not finished her assignment, but she's currently the only person who has signed up. You'll notice here you can also add points. I think when Google has created this, I would imagine around North America or even around the world, grading systems are very different. So if you're in Ontario, we're using knowledge thinking communication application. It's not really set up for that. So what I do in a lot of cases is just have a rubric in my instruction or my assignment, and I will mark from there. And I sometimes, depending on if it's just one mark that's in the actual assignment, I sometimes ignore the points system there. But again, if you just have one mark category that's being marked, it can be quite useful. So that's one of the basic features of Google Classroom, and hopefully it's shown you that you can, it can really be used to help administer and organize your class, and for students as well. So I said there's an app for that. They can actually download the app as well, so they can have all of their, and this is how in our school it's working. They would have all of their classrooms per semester. We're a semestered school. They would have all their classrooms on their app, and they can see what's due, and if you want to send them a message through the classroom, or add an assignment or put an extended due date, whatever it may be, they can get updates on that as well. So again, a great way to administer a classroom for a class. And I'll open this part up to everyone. And feel free, again, to turn on your microphone and answer. How many of you are using, and I guess this would be also a check mark in the Collaborate screen, how many of you are actually using Google Classroom? And if you have any great stories about it or ways that you think can be improved, feel free to open the microphone and tell us about it. Okay, so I'm going to take that as no one. Okay. Classroom.google.com if you're interested, and again, Google Apps for Education and an account with Google Apps for Education is necessary to use Classroom as well. So you'd have to create an account. Okay, so I'm going to open an example of a simulation. So I'm still using the application sharing feature, so you should be able to see my my Chrome browser here. So just as I do this, I do want to show the production activity is here. And I've noticed these have all turned into copies. I believe they may not have been copies before, so I think all of us have access to it, even if you're not signed in right now. What I am going to do is open our production game, and it's our instruction sheet, but I'm going to open it in Google, or open it with Google's Sheet, or Google Docs, excuse me, not Sheets. And I just want to show you another Chrome extension. This is not a Google Docs extension. This is something you would do with Chrome. So if you're not using Chrome, and I think this is a natural sort of business strategy. Google kind of, I've never heard anybody say this out loud, but I feel like this is the way it works. If you're using Chrome, the features of Google Drive and Google Documents and Google Sheets and Forms and Classroom work much better. So if you're not using Chrome, it's a free download, and it'll make your life easier if you're using any of the Google Apps for Education. So this is our production game. So this is a simulation. So I've now moved on to simulations. I presented this before in a similar webinar and as well at other workshops. So this is a way of not using, again, a textbook and getting students engaged, as well as using technology in the class to, I don't want to say improve your business studies classes because I'm sure they're all awesome, but just an activity that you can use. So what I do want to show you, though, is an extension here, as I've been saying numerous times, that not really applicable in this activity, but maybe applicable in your classes. So if you're using on Google Docs and you're worried about students sharing information or sharing documents and you not knowing, there's a couple of features that do really help you out, where you can probably take an estimated or an educated guess as to whether students are not being academically honest in submitting assignments or activities. So I'm just going to type, it's just going to be some random words here. So OTF connects, and I'm hoping you can see this on my screen. Is a great way to okay, so while I'm typing this, you can probably see, and I'm floating here with my mouse, that there's something called a draft back. So if you have a Google Chrome, Explorer, in the top right corner here, you'll see three little lines, and you can click on that, and it'll allow you to open up the option of getting Chrome extensions. So I apologize. See on mine? I'm not sure if it's because I already have DraftBack, but so again, I apologize for that. I'm going to open a new tab. Not showing up on here. So if I just type Chrome extensions and something called DraftBack, which I spelled incorrectly, you can see it there, hopefully. So I'll click on that. And I've already added it to my Chrome, so again, it's a free download. There's no charge for it. But you'll see in a second, it's kind of a magical extension. It'll show you the progress that somebody's made in preparing a document. It's almost scary that this can actually be done. But it's, again, a great tool for us as educators. So I've added it to Chrome. What you may see is if you were to type DraftBack Chrome extension, it would ask you if you want to add it to Chrome rather than it being green on mine and saying added to Chrome already. So I'll exit out of there. And I'm going to use this extension for this document that I have here. So once you've downloaded the extension, if you start a new Chrome browser, it'll pop up next time you open up a Google Sheet. So I'm going to click on DraftBack, and it is going to take a second here to sort of summarize itself. And when I click on View, it is going to show me the progress that was made in creating this document. Let's see what happens here. Oops, change this. Sorry, I'm going to try that again. It's not. Oh, I see it's processing here. I apologize, everyone. I'm just waiting for this to load. I don't know if you can see my screen and the wheel turning. Susan, can you see that wheel turning there?
Sorry, I was just doing attendance. What am I looking for? I don't see a wheel turning, no.
No, you don't see it. So if I'm hovering my mouse
yes,
there,
yes.
Wheel.
Yes.
Yeah.
Processing
so I
change
apologize.
log,
Yes, I'm just waiting for that to work. I apologize for that.
So there's a question in the chat that maybe you can answer while we're waiting. What is the purpose of the Chrome extension? Okay,
so it's going to show you the, basically it'll play back how a document was created. So for example, if you have an assignment that you've handed out where there is a right or wrong answer, and you have students working on this, you may be concerned about academic honesty. So if students are copying from each other or using information from the internet and not putting in their own words or not sourcing their information, essentially using the copy and paste sort of feature, what it will do is play back to you the process in which that document was created. So as soon as my wheel stops turning here, I will show you that. And it'll show, so if you can imagine, sometimes when you have a PowerPoint presentation and you click on the typing feature and it shows the words showing coming up on the screen or on your PowerPoint slide as being typed, it's similar to that. So you can see the students' history of typing on that document. It'll show you, again, if they've erased anything, if they've copied and pasted. So what will happen is, imagine they have a large block of text, a few paragraphs, and it populates itself in the document within one revision. You know that it's been copied and pasted from somewhere. So again, it's not about spying on students, or it's not about just catching them or saying I got you on this one. It's more about having sort of a conversation, and it's a learning, I guess, conversation with your students that there's a sort of academic honesty, and it really does matter, and we have to keep integrity in classes, so it'll help you do that. But again, I'm still waiting for my wheel to spin here. I may open up a different document just to show this feature so we can move on and talk about this production game. So again, I apologize for the clicking, but I'm going to open up a totally different document that is not a simulation. And hopefully that one is not spinning as I open it. But this is something we'll look at a little bit later. Actually, I'm going to open a different one. I apologize, everyone, for skipping through some stuff here. VAT 401. This is not in our folder, but it's. I'm finding a document that I have a lot of typing on, so it'll show you a good example of this. And if you're reading this assignment, if you want me to share this with you, I can do that as well. Okay, there we go. That's a good one. 4,279 revisions. So I've done this myself. So this is all my original work there. So I'll click draft back, and you'll see that it's working. And what it's doing is creating sort of a real-time demonstration of how this document was created. And I apologize for the delay on this, but I think once you see it, you'll be quite amazed if you've never seen it before. And again, it's pretty cool that we have access to some of this stuff. And I understand there's other programs you can use like Turnitin and that, but this is one that's just a quick extension. You don't have to go through much of a process to check on the progress of the student's work. I'll just wait for it to populate its revisions. All right. So this is pretty cool. And hopefully you guys can see this. This is it's in a quick mode. You can see in the top left corner here, if I click play at actual speed, it will slow down. But I think we can all agree that I wrote this myself and it was not copied and pasted, because you can see the process of my thinking. If something was copied and pasted, or I don't want to be too negative, but plagiarized from the internet, you would be able to tell pretty quickly. So I think I can pause this, and I think hopefully everybody gets the idea here. And I apologize if I'm being a little bit silly, but click the green check mark if you think that's pretty cool. Awesome. Sorry, if you want to open up your microphone as well, and I apologize for slowing down some of this, but who thinks they would find use in this? So again, if you want to add some feedback to the conversation, that'd be great if you can turn on your microphone. And
so Catherine, I think that's Catherine asked, how would it appear differently? I would assume it would just instantly appear rather than being.
It would, yes. So instead of you seeing all that typing, you would just see this big block of text show up. And there would not be numerous revisions. So in this example I've given you, there's 4,279 revisions. You might have one revision or two revisions. So again, it's a conversation to have with a student. One of the common answers I've always had with this, students will say, well, I created another document and I just copied and pasted it into this document. Again, that's a conversation to have with the students individually, but again, it's not about I gotcha and that kind of approach. It's more about talking about having that conversation about academic honesty and academic dishonesty, for that matter. Anybody else see any different uses for this? And again, feel free to open your microphone and add to the conversation.
I see it as a great thing for group work. When you have the, well, I did all this or I did all that, be a very quick way to tell who was adding in what into a document.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. If you're using Google Docs already, there is a revision history, so you can also see that as well, and it's just more information that you have to have those discussions. So in a Google document, so I'll click back to the Google document here. If you click on the last edit or file, see revision history is another option. To seeing the revision history, it'll tell you how the document was created. So you can see my name here. I spent a couple days preparing this assignment, and I can go into some real detailed revisions, and it'll sort of highlight it for me. And it'll tell me, or tell you as the educator who did what and what they crossed out and what they added and that as well. So again, just more information to have those conversations with your students. Okay, back to what I was actually, sorry, I cut somebody off there, I think. Was there something?
That's okay. It was just me. I was just going to ask, I know that most of you were saying you're not using Google Classroom, or some of you did. How many of you, just with a check mark, are using Google Drive and Docs with students? Okay, so we're kind of half and half.
Half and half. So yeah. Actually, just to add to the question there, thanks, Susan. Yeah, we're 60-40 here. The 40% here, I guess, that are not using it. Do you have plans to use it? And I guess from my standpoint, am I going too fast through some of this? Because some of it, I think I've made the assumption that many of us are using it already. So again, feel free to open your microphone and add to the conversation.
I think for me, I just haven't spent the time yet learning about it, so okay. I'm not comfortable using it with my kids yet. I know some of my kids use it. My son's in grade 9, he's 14, and he uses it all the time. So he's shown me a few things, but I'm not at the point yet where I feel like I can be like, okay, this is what we're going to do. Yeah, there's just, I don't know, I get overwhelmed sometimes.
Yeah, and so I was going to, just to add to that, I know you're absolutely right. So if I was to give any advice to someone who hasn't used it and is thinking about using it, obviously start small. You don't want to completely adopt this for your entire class, for if you're in a semester at school, or for the whole year for that matter. But I would just start with a Google document, so signing up for an account and creating a Google document, and even just sharing it with a colleague. Before you maybe possibly sharing it with a class, and then move through it that way. So Google Documents is relatively easy to use. You can see probably on the screen that I have in front, or in the Collaborate application sharing feature here, that it looks much like Microsoft Word, not exactly the same. Some features aren't available in Google Docs. They're available in some of the MS Office products. But still very useful, and things that it can do are pretty powerful, like draft back and adding some of the extensions that you may not get with something like Microsoft Office. So not that I'm trying to promote one versus the other, but they just do some things a little bit differently, but essentially they do work in the same way. And I'll ask this of the group as well, because again, part of this is about sharing. Those of you that are using Google Docs, do you use it consistently? Do you use it throughout all of your classes, or is it sparingly? So again, feel free to open your microphone and tell us how you use it.
Hello. In the main, in the main, I use Google Docs for the more major assignments for the students. And also in Hamilton, I was looking just now at the Google Classroom, and we have a lot of these features, but we use a different platform called the Hub. Daniel, does Halton use Google Classrooms sort of as a whole board initiative? Or do they have their own thing?
No, it's we've adopted Google almost for everything. So I know Catherine Gladwich is in this webinar as well, and she works in the board I do. So we've even for communication amongst people on the board and teachers, we're using Gmail now. So we've gone away with our old email and message board system. So we are essentially fully engaged in the Google Apps for Education world.
Okay, yeah, that's a different thing, because we use mainly Outlook in the main and other dashboard platforms that the Hamilton seems to have adopted by themselves.
Yeah. Again, there's still some pretty useful applications for it. So even before our whole board in that school, their whole board adopted the Google Apps for Education. I was using it before that, and it was still pretty useful. So even having your students sign up with a Gmail account is relatively straightforward, and many of them may already have it. So it doesn't really need to be a whole board initiative. You can even just do it in the class. Again, I would take small steps in doing that. Does anybody else have anything else to add to that before I move on again to the simulation here?
Yes, Daniel and I work in the same board, and I want to say that actually things are happening right now in Google with some of the teachers I'm working with. It's been wonderful for collaboration with teachers and teachers in other schools. We can share files and documents and assignments and whatever we're working on. So that's where we have found it huge in terms of that whole collaboration process for us with our students and with other teachers.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to go back to our folder here. So I think hopefully everybody's following along or can see me in navigating through folders. So again, this folder is shared with everyone. Again, this production activity is something I presented before. So if you've seen me at a workshop, I may have presented this in the past. So I apologize for for duplicating that. But it really is a really useful, cool sort of simulation that is engaging, and students do really enjoy it. And even though, like I was saying, it does involve some technology, so I put up our scores and our what I call our dashboard up on the screen here. It also gets them sort of working with their hands and away from some of the tech, as we were talking about. Sometimes there's a tech overload, so it's good to have them sort of step away from it for a class or two and do something like this that's a little hands-on. So this production game is something I use in our grade 10 Intro to Business, so our BBI in our school. It's BBI 201. I know some schools in the province teach or have BBI classes run in grade 9. So it's useful in your production units or production component of the course. So I created this game a couple years ago just because I'm sure many of us will agree the concept of production and covering that can sometimes be pretty engaging. I mean, there's some great videos out there on how it's made and resources that show, again, how products are actually created. But covering some of the theory behind it can be a little bit dry. So this is just a way for students to sort of engage themselves in production. So what you see here looks like a lot of numbers, and sometimes when we look at spreadsheets, our eyes gloss over if there's too much information on it, but I'll navigate through you in a sort of a quick way, and feel free again to use this file and make a copy for yourself and use it in your class. So you can see on the left-hand side here, I've had teams in the class create their own name. I always like to do something a little fun with this, so I'll ask them, I'll give them 1 minute, I'll say, come up with a team name within this next minute. And then when you ask the group, the first thing that comes out of their mouth, I write down. So if they say, I'm not sure, their team name is I'm not sure. So we have a little bit of fun with that. So I have their company name on the side here. What you are looking at is beside that is their purchases of resources that they need to produce 2 items. One is a paper alligator, as I'm scrolling down here, and one is a Chinese lantern. So I, myself, the teacher at the front, is the market. So I'm willing to pay a certain amount for alligators and a certain amount for Chinese lanterns. So in this case here, and I've fooled around with some of the numbers here, and you can adapt it however you want. The market requires 52 alligators and 70 Chinese lanterns. So they have to decide what they want to produce. For them to know how to produce what I actually want as the market, I have some, and this is in our folder, so I'll go back to our folder. I have some instructions on what to create. So the idea in this game is that we're living in the knowledge age or the information age, and that information is extremely important to making products or providing services. So I've given an instruction page here, and they have to buy this with their $250 budget. So the instructions are $150, whether it's for alligators or Chinese lanterns. And once they buy the information, they also have the ability, I'm clicking back here, to buy the supplies and equipment they need to produce these Chinese lanterns or alligators. So I am not going to lie, sometimes it creates a little bit of waste. I justify it in our school by saying, well, I don't use a ton of paper. I mean, I use paper hopefully in a purposeful way, but I'm not photocopying every day. That may be different for different educators in different buildings, depending on the resources they have available to them. If you're worried about wasting a lot of paper, if you want to use paper that's already been printed on, or even that's scrap paper, then that's great to use too. So you can see on the left-hand side where my mouse pointer is that you would need scissors for each group because they decide to buy scissors. I generally keep it to 1 pair of scissors per team, just because that sort of forces them to try to be efficient in what they're doing, and not everybody with a pair of scissors trying to cut pieces of paper. So again, it forces them to divide tasks and sort of form an assembly line kind of group. So the prices are there, so I charge them to buy these resources from me, and they go ahead and produce as many alligators or Chinese lanterns as they see fit. So I also only have them able to sell these products at certain times. So I don't keep the market open all period. You'll see that if you do decide to run this game, if you have a market open the whole period, it becomes pretty hard to manage. So I allow them to produce what they need to produce. So it's sort of a production time, and then there's a selling time. So then once the market opens, they can bring up their items to sell to me. I then refer to the instructions to make sure they've followed along exactly as the instructions have said, so it's quality control. And I will buy what passes quality control. If it doesn't pass, I give it back to them and say, I will not buy this. This is not what I've asked for. And I'm not sure on my screen says signed out. No, I'm not positive on that, but hopefully that pops up in a couple seconds here. I am not signed out. I didn't get signed out, so I apologize if you're seeing that on your screen. So that's essentially our production game. So what I do is, hit sign in. I don't know why that's happening. Automatically kicked me out there. Sorry for some of these technical glitches. So I put up our dashboard, or excuse me, our scoreboard throughout the game. So I'll put up our team values, and this spreadsheet is formulated for you just to punch in numbers, and it should populate itself for you. So I'll have this up there, and students, I'm sure many of us know, are driven by competition in some cases. So it's healthy competition. It's a good way to get them engaged. And in the past, you don't have to do this, but in the past what I've done is, I don't know if you've ever been to the dollar store and see those $1 trophies. I do give out a trophy in most classes to the team that has the highest team value at the end. So I'll put a little label on the front, and I'll just put their team name on it and tell them that they're the production champions. So I give them that plastic dollar store Dollarama trophy, and it usually works out, and they enjoy getting that, even if it's not a real trophy, but it can be enjoyable. So I'll open this up again. I know a lot of us probably do some similar type activities, whether you're teaching economics or intro to business, where you have sort of a supply and demand game or a production game. So has anybody used something similar or has used this activity in the past, and how's it gone?
I use this activity every semester, and my students absolutely love it, and they actually ask to play it again just for fun. So it's fantastic. It's a great simulation.
All right. Anyone else, even if you're teaching an economics course, you've probably seen some simulation games out there. Yeah, or even I'm reading the chat here, the type chat in the bottom left corner. So yeah, stock market games for sure. Sorry, just to add this in, if you are using Google Sheets and you're doing a stock market game, if you're collecting information through Google Sheets, pretty cool thing. Sorry, this is just a little bit off the cuff here, but now that you've said that, I'll just throw it out there. Google has and I think Excel does have a similar formula, if I'm not mistaken, but it will actually track, the price of a stock. So if you type in the formula equals Google Finance, sorry if I'm a little off topic here, you can type in any stock, and you have to identify the exchange. So I'll do the Royal Bank here, and that's on the TSE. Ooh, can I type that in correctly? I did. Actually, what I will do, I'll just show you. So that someone said that just to make this easy. I'll go to my stock market and do a stock market activity as well. And I'll just show the formula. Call it our 1-month investment challenge. Apologize for flipping through some of this. So it will actually track a stock. This is a totally different activity, but if you want me to put this into the folder, I can. And I apologize for just, and I would say that I would argue that this is part of our resource sharing. So when someone comes up with an idea, I think it's great for any of us to show some examples. So current price, there we go. So Google Finance will track the price for you. So you don't actually have to track it, and it'll give you its current market price. So all you have to do is put in the ticker name, which I'm scrolling through and showing you here. So again, I apologize if I'm going through this a little bit quickly, but I can put this in there if anybody wants to use a similar activity, even though it wasn't in the folder already. Okay, so I can do that. I see somebody saying yes, thanks, and yes, please, I will do that. And again, I apologize. Some people aren't probably spreadsheet people. I'm a sort of a big spreadsheet person, and I apologize if any of your eyes are glossing over as I'm going through all these spreadsheets. Okay, all right. Am I okay? I think I'm okay from everyone to move on to a performance task that I have done in the past in a course called IDC 4UB, which is Building Financial Security. Can I get a check mark to move on, or do we have any other questions? All right, everybody wants me to move on. I apologize if I'm going a little bit slow through this, so here we go. I'll go back to our classroom. This one is in our classroom folder that we have shared, and it is called IDC 4UB, Performance Task Instructions. So again, I like spreadsheets. I mean, I use them quite a bit, and even if I'm sometimes teaching a non-quantitative course. So this course here, you may not have heard of it. I know in our board, we only, there's one school that's running it, and at our school here, since we have new grade 12s this year, and we're sort of establishing our program a little bit here in business studies, we'll actually be running 2 sections of this next year, so I'm pretty excited about that. So Building Financial Security, it's basically like an advanced financial literacy course. It's an interdisciplinary course, so some of you may have heard of an IDC course before. It's a combination of a few courses sort of locally developed and put into one course. So what I've done here is I've created sort of a scenario for students to provide a financial plan and an investment portfolio. So I don't get into I get into a little bit of detail on investment portfolios, but again, I try to keep it in perspective. We're not personal financial planners right now. It's more for them to understand how creating, let's say, diversified portfolios and establishing a budget in their life, as a student or as a professional, whomever. That is a really important thing. So you're going to see some randomized formulas in here. So I'm going to click on one of those. Again, don't be alarmed by the formula that I've put in there. Just know that you can use this if you make a copy and sort of make it however you want. If you are not comfortable with formulas in a spreadsheet, then don't change them. But if you are comfortable with them, you'll see that every time you open it, it will randomize the actual activity and the name. So if you're, again, concerned about academic honesty, let's say you had a class of 30, and you can do this even with other quantitative courses where you want to randomize some numbers. The rand between formula will do that for you, okay? And again, it's still the same activity. You're still testing or trying to assess and evaluate the same skills. You're just changing up some of the numbers here, and that way students have to sort of be, they have to be academically honest, and you're not too concerned about them just copying each other. My approach to this, and you may think that is incorrect, but I sometimes actually don't mind when students are doing, let's say, a performance task or an in-class assignment, because they do actually talk to each other. It's not, to me, it's not a huge deal depending on what they're doing. if they're talking to the person sitting beside them about what are their ideas in this, or what do you think they should do, or them even giving another student their own ideas, that is still a learning experience for me, I think. And it really does, for me, sometimes I hope that they're having those conversations, because that means they're engaged in it, and they're thinking about it, and they're going through a learning experience in your class. So in this example here, you have two partners who have different occupations. So again, if you open this file or change anything in the file, you'll see that sometimes it does change. And this is a formula that can be used in Excel as well. So if you want to download an Excel, you'll notice there that I just put a period in a cell, and it'll automatically change the parameters of the activity. So you'll notice before I had a construction, I believe I had a construction laborer there. I just changed something, and it automatically changes, right, who the partners are. You'll also notice here they have a certain annual income, but that also means that their portfolio value changes as well. Okay, so you'll also see that they have two children. So if you scroll down a little bit, as I'm doing in my screen here, you'll see that they have, again, two children, and they're attending a certain school. So in this course, I've shown them in the past where to find the costs of certain programs at certain schools around the country. So again, you'll see that I've randomized this. So if they have two children, sometimes they're going to different schools, and you can see in these two rows here that prior to this I had two children who were going to Laurentian, and the other one was, I believe, the University of Ottawa, if I'm not mistaken. I've randomized this, so every student, you can give them a printout of this instruction page. It is formatted to print on one page, I think, right now. Again, you can change that around if you want. And you'll also see that they need to retire in row 19 with that amount of money to live a comfortable lifestyle. I've kind of made this a perfect scenario for them. So obviously in real life, it's not always a perfect scenario, but they've just sold their house and they're living with one of the parents of the partners. So they have this money available to them, and they create a plan from there. Okay. I've also shown that they have a little bit of debt. So they had, some of them have gone on a vacation. So that's the element I'm in now. So they may have gone on a vacation, or they've made or done a little renovation on a house. In this case here, the example that you can see, they've gone to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and purchased an Elvis Presley guitar with a line of credit. So you may see that as a great purchase. Some may not. And you'll also see that in this course I do talk about paychecks, and that the money you earn as a gross income is not always what you earn as a take-home amount. So they do learn how to calculate deductions like Canada Pension Plan, employment insurance, and that. So I've said in this here that it's not required for this performance task, but they do and are aware of it in the actual class. So I'm hoping this is something you can use. So again, it does look, if first time looking at it, and maybe not going through it in your class, it does look like there's a lot of info there. But I have also provided a rationale. So if I go back to our folder, you can see that I've come up with a marking rationale for everybody, or anybody using this as well. That'll pop up in a second. And I'll just show you some of the answers that you can, or that you are looking for, and even when students are asking you questions, that you can give them sort of a guide as to what you're actually looking for. Because the truth of the matter is that even in everyone's real sort of life when it comes to finances, if you use a personal banker or a fee-based financial planner, you could have 100 different people doing that for you that'll give you 100 different answers. So there's no perfect right answer. It's just the idea that they can sort of navigate through some of this, even just some of the language and terminology, and come up with a budget and sort of a projection for the next few years and where they see themselves in this scenario. So I will open this up to, again, the group, and I apologize again for going through that a little bit quickly, but do you feel like this is something you could use in a class, even if it's not a building a financial security class, or even taking out some of the detail and using it in, let's say, an intro to business class or an economics class? If there's any feedback for that?
I just have a quick question. I'm concerned about anyone in the room here right now who has not been able to access the folder. So I'm wondering if you can share the links in the chat. I would do it, but I also can't access the folder because I no longer have a Google Apps for Education account. Would that be helpful? Are there people who need that?
Oh, okay. Do you mean the link for each file?
I do. Is that too much?
It's not too much. I don't know that I can do that in the next 10 minutes, but I can definitely.
Well, that's a good point. Why don't we could look after that, you and I, after the session, and you can share them with me, and I can share them with Amy, who does the resources, and they can come out as a link with the recording. We'll talk about that later, but you'll have access to them, everyone, just so you know.
Sorry to add this to the conversation. If you already have access, which I do know some people who have access, because I can tell just when I've shared it that they have a Gmail or a Google Apps for Education account, and I think they do have access just by logging into their Google Drive. But if you don't need access to it, it'd be great to know that. Then we don't have to send out these big, massive files to you, which you may not really want in your inbox.
Daniel, you go ahead. I will. I'll gather that information in the chat if people would do that.
Okay, so I apologize. I've skipped over some of that resource sharing. So I've given a performance task. I've talked about simulation. So I thought an hour and a half was a lot of time. So I've done this before, but sometimes time flies when you're having fun. So we only have about 9 minutes left. So I was going to give some time for people to share some of their ideas and items that they could put into the folders. So you can do that really any time. The idea behind, I think, this webinar is that we have access to this even after the webinar is over. So feel free to add that. If you decide that you want to use one of these activities, if you could do all of us a huge favor, if you can make your own copy of it rather than editing it in the original file, it would be helpful for everyone. So again, feel free to use any of the items that are shared in there. And if you do want to upload an item, that would be great. I know sometimes as educators we're kind of concerned about sharing our stuff, for lack of a better term, but I think even if it's not perfect for the sort of the intended user, as long as they can adapt it and sort of make it their own, as we do quite a bit of the time in education, I think that's still pretty useful. And yeah, the idea of sharing is great, and that's how we kind of learn from each other. So feel free to do that. Okay. Does anybody have, and this is the part, if you look at the schedule in the last few minutes here with resource sharing, does anybody have, even just if you give us a verbal description of an activity that you think would be sort of using cloud computing or Google Apps for Education or tech for that matter, that's really useful, that you find really engaging? Again, even a verbal description is great. And again, don't be afraid to turn your microphone and add to the conversation. Okay, you know what? I'll answer the question in the bottom left corner here. So it says, does my board have to purchase Google Apps for Education? Technically, no. I mean, obviously it's great. Like Catherine and I were talking here about the whole Mission School Board, where it's sort of a part of our everyday life, and the board is definitely supportive of it. But I think you can still use it in a classroom as long as your students are set up with, and I'm talking just Google Drive in general. But some of the other apps like Classroom is a different story. But just Google Drive in general is just a useful tool as well. So even just having your students with a Gmail account and using Google Drive is okay, as long as your board doesn't restrict any access to any of those things. But yeah, with the Google Classroom, it's a little different. Google Chrome, that's great. Yeah, everybody loves Monopoly. I also use Monopoly as well, so that's a good one for sure. Just talking about board games as well, just to add to that, and just to keep the conversation going. A good one sometimes I do use is the Game of Life as well in the BBI class when we're going through our personal finance unit. They even have versions now of the Game of Life that are speed games, so you don't really need to spend too much time on it, but it's another one as well for the finance unit in your BBI class. Again, get away from the textbook, engaging students, not so tech obviously, but still pretty useful. So just to answer that question at the bottom there, if you don't have Google Apps for Education, can you still access them? So that's what Susan and I were talking about. We'll send out resources with links and/or files. No problem. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the Collaborate screen. And it's great that I think it's awesome that you guys are sharing in the chat there. So I'm going to close my application sharing, and I'm just going to go to the end of our slideshow here. Just waiting for my wheel to turn. Okay, I think we're back. So I'm just going to scroll through some of these slides. This was just showing some of the activities that are in the file folder. So again, we'll send out some of these, but those of you that are using Google Drive, you have access to them, and I've invited you as an editor in those files, so you can use them as you please. And if you have any questions for me, that's my email address there, and I really appreciate everyone participating. And I apologize for some of those glitches in there, and hopefully we'll see you soon in and around workshops around the province.
So I'm just going to jump in here. I put Daniel's contact information also in the chat, but just before 9 o'clock, I just want to point out a couple of things. So the session has been recorded, as you know, and you will get a link to that following the session. Sometimes they come sort of within half an hour of closing out. We also really request that you do a feedback survey. So the link is right on your screen. It's the top orange link. It's an active link, so you can click right on that and it will open it up. And you can do that while I'm talking and finishing up the session. We appreciate that. It helps to drive the programming for future OTF Connects, and we're already thinking about planning for next year. It also, if you do need a print certificate for a professional file or anything, if you do the feedback survey, up to 48 hours following that, you have access to a certificate. But after that, you'd have to write to OTF and get them to send you the link again. So please do that. We really appreciate it. OTF Connects has a very full schedule coming up, and the second orange link on the page will take you right out to the calendar. If you'd like to sign up for future sessions, I just went and copied all the April sessions that are coming up. And as you can see, there's a lot of math and technology in the future. So and there's a real balance. There's far more secondary focused workshops this year than we've had in the past. Clicking on the links doesn't work for me. Okay, I'm going to also put them in the chat. So let me just go and do that right now, and then you can access them from there. So I've put 3 links in the chat. The first one is the feedback survey. The second one, right now, if you go to it, it's going to say link is not active. So Amy at the OTF office, she will put that resource link together tomorrow. And the third one there is the OTF calendar, which has everything that's on this current slide, as well as much more to the end of May. So sessions go till the end of May, basically Mondays to Thursdays. And they're all free and they're all amazing. And you can access all of the recordings for all the sessions, whether you signed up or not, on the OTF website. So pretty great. Thanks, it still doesn't work, but at least I can copy and paste from the chat. Okay, that's interesting. The links in the chat should work as well, so if they're not, I'm not really sure what that means. I'm actually going to stop the recording now, and then I'm going to talk about, so thank you everyone for coming. We really appreciate having you tonight, and thank you Daniel for a most informative, love simulation games, lots of great information.